So firstly, let's recap. So in the previous session, we have seen about a third-party package, node.14, using which the server will... So then we understood about the SQLite methods, get and run, right? Coming to today's session. In today's session, to the getBooks API, we'll add some more filters, okay? And then we'll understand about the REST APIs and about the REST API principles, okay? So to set the code playground for today's session, so you need to run this ccbp start and that code, right? So then the code playground will be set for today's session. Okay, previously written various APIs, right? So getBooks API, there's getBook, addBook, updateBook, deleteBook, getAuthorBooks APIs. Like this, we have written various APIs. In today's session, let's add filters to the getBooks API. Okay, generally in the e-commerce websites, you might have seen various filters, right? So there is search bar, you can search, right? So and then you can filter the products based on the price range. You can sort the products based on the price, based on the rating. Like this, there are various filters available, right? So similarly, now let's apply some filters to the getBooks API. Okay, so let's say there is pagination, okay, and we want to get some specific number of books. Okay, so then another filter could be we want to get books based on a search query text. Let's say we have searched Potter. We want to get all the books which have the word Potter in the title. Okay, and then there is another filter. Say we want to get the books in the sorted order. Okay, so we want to sort the books based on say price or based on the book ID and so on. Okay, so these are the various filters that we want to apply. Okay, so let's start with getting specific number of books. So for that, we can make use of the limit and offset. We have already seen about this in the SQL, right? So let's make use of that. Okay, so using the offset, we can specify the position from where the rows have to be selected. Okay, so say the offset is 2, right? So after the first 2 books, we want to select the books. Okay, and then using the limit, we can specify the number of rows that we want to select. Okay, the number of books that we want as a result. We can specify that using the limit. Okay, so now we can make use of the limit and offset. So we have to specify this limit and offset in the API, right? So how do we specify it? So for that, we can make use of the query parameters. Okay, so the query parameters there you can see will start with the question mark, and after that you can mention the key value pairs. So there you can see offset equal to 2 and limit equal to 3. So offset is a key and the corresponding value is 2. So offset equal to 2 is a query parameter, and then limit equal to 3 is another query parameter. Okay, so and then you can mention various query parameters and separate them with the ampersand symbol. Okay, so in the URL, there are various parts. Firstly, we have the protocol. There you can see HTTP or HTTPS, and then the domain name, right, which is localhost:3000, and then we have the path, okay, and then we have the question mark, and that's where the query parameters will start. So here, the query parameters will be in the form of key value pairs. Okay, so offset 2, limit 3. Okay, clear? So we understood about the query parameters, right? Let's see various examples. So there you can see, in the first example, there you can see we have question mark, limit equal to 2. So, and then in the third example, there you can see question mark, offset equal to 2. In that, we even have the path parameter. So we can make use of the query parameters along with the path parameters also. Okay, clear? So now, let's understand the difference between the query parameters and the path parameters. The query parameters are used to sort or filter the resources. Okay, so given some resources, if you want to sort them or if you want to filter them, you can specify that using the query parameters. Okay, whereas the path parameters are used to identify a specific resource or resources. Let's say you want to identify a specific book, or if you want to identify a specific set of books, right? So for that, we make use of the path parameter. Okay, so query parameter is used for sorting or filtering the resources. Path parameter is used to identify a specific resource or resources. Okay, clear? So to access the path parameters, we have request.params object, right? So in the request object, which is passed as an argument to the handler, so in that we have params object using which we can access the path parameters, right? So now, how do we access the query parameters? So for that, we have request.query object. So in the request object, there is a query object which will contain the query parameters in the form of key value pairs. Okay, so there you can see in the request.query object, so we have offset 2 and limit as 3. Okay, clear? So they'll be present in the form of key value pairs. Okay. So as we previously understood, so for path parameters, we have request.params. Okay, so generally when you write /author/:author ID, if you specify that. So, and then let's say the URL is /author/2, then the 2 will be present in the path parameter author ID. You can access it using the request.params object, right? Similarly, so if you have passed some request body, HTTP request body, so you can access that using the request.body, right? So similarly, when it comes to the query parameters, we can make use of the request.query object. Okay, clear? So we understood about this, right? So now let's go to the next filter, which is we want to get the books based on a search query text. So let's say we have searched for Potter. So we want to get all the books whose title contains the word Potter. Okay, so for that, let's make use of a query parameter search underscore q equal to Potter. Okay, so we'll specify a query parameter in this manner. Okay, and then appropriately using the SQL where we can do pattern matching, we can make use of that and get all the resources related to it. Okay, clear? So then let's say we want to get books in a sorted order. Let's say sorting based on book ID or say price based on the column that we want. So we can get books in the sorted order, right? So that could be in the ascending order or descending order. We can even specify that using the query parameter. So let's have a look at the various query parameters that we have discussed so far. So firstly, the limit and offset. Okay, and the search query, okay, search underscore q, right? And then if you want to order them, so firstly we specify order by and the column we're using which we want to order, and then the order in which we want, whether it's descending or ascending, we can specify that using order equal to descending like this. Okay, clear? So you understood this, right? So we can specify various query parameters in this manner using which we can either sort or filter the resources. Okay, clear? Now let's understand the HTTP request and response. So coming to the request, as we are fetching, so the method would be get. Coming to the URL, so there you can see, right, the various query parameters we have specified there. Okay, and the corresponding response is the list of books based on the query parameters and the path parameter, right? Okay, so here generally when we have to handle a particular API, so we write app dot, we'll specify the method and then we specify the path and the handler. So here when the method and the path match, so then the handler will get executed. Okay, so there you can see we have two examples of APIs. Okay, so we have slash book slash question mark limit equal to 2. There is another thing where the path is the same, that is slash book slash, whereas the query parameters are varying, right? So here when we are handling the API, we only match the method and the path, right? So both these URLs will point to the same API, right? So the request URLs with different query parameters but with the same path parameter and the same HTTP method will point to the same API, right? So for both these URLs, the same handler will get executed. Okay, so you understood this part, right? We only match the method and the path, right? So in the API, we only match these two, and appropriately, if these two match, then the handler will get executed. So for these two URLs, the same handler will get executed. Okay, clear? So now let's have a look at the getBooks API. We have written this previously, right? So there you can see the method is get, so app.get off, and then we have the path as slash books slash. Okay, so and then there you can see we have the handler. So in the handler there's a particular SQL query, and then we are doing db.all, getting all the books, storing it in the books array, and we are sending that as a response, right? So this is the getBooks API that we have written previously. Okay, let's have a look at that too. Okay, so I have set the code playground for today's session. So in the index.js, okay, so let's go to the getBooks API. So there you can see this is the getBooks API. Okay, so the method is get, and then the path is slash book slash, and then we have the handler where we have a particular SQL query, and then we are doing db.all of that particular query. So we are getting the books array, and then we are sending that as a response, right? This part is clear. Okay, so when you're setting the code playground, one important point to note is you need to run npm install. So cd my app, okay, npm install. Okay, so you already know about this, right? So I'm just reiterating the importance of it, right? So with this, all the dependencies mentioned in the package.json will get installed. There you can see. Okay, cool. So we have seen the getBooks API, right? This step is done. Okay. So now the next thing is we want to access the query parameters. Okay. So where will they be present? In the request.query object. So from the request.query object, as we understood in that, so they'll be present in the key value pairs. It's an object, right? So to extract the query parameters from that, we are going to use the object destructuring, and we are appropriately storing them in offset, limit, search underscore q, order, and order by. So in this way, we are accessing all the query parameters. Okay. Now we have the query parameters. Using this, we have to appropriately update the SQL query, right? So let's update the SQL query. So there you can see. So basically, what the query that we want to write is, so where the title like, okay, and then we have written percentile, Potter percentile. That is, we want all the books anywhere in the title. If the word Potter is present, we want all such books, right? So for that, we have already seen about this pattern matching in SQL, right? So percentile, we have to specify the word in the search underscore q query parameter there. Okay, and then percentile. So it will give us all the books with that particular word in the title. Okay, anywhere it could be. So then we are ordering by, and we'll specify the column using which we want to order, and the order in which we want, whether it's descending or ascending. So then the limit, so we'll specify the limit value, and offset will specify the offset value. Okay, clear? So we have to update the SQL query in this manner. So all these values, the Potter, the price, descending, all these are present in the variables, right? So we'll make use of them. Okay, there you can see. So in that template string, so there you can see percentile, dollar. So then we have mentioned the search underscore q. So order by, dollar, we have written the order by, and then we have specified the order, then the limit and the offset, right? So we have to appropriately update the SQL query in this manner. Okay, clear? So now let's update this and try it out. Okay. So this is our API, right? Getbooks API. So firstly, from the request.query object, so we have to get the various query parameters. Okay. So for that, so firstly, we need to use the object destructuring. So in the request.query object, so we will have the query parameters, right? So using object destructuring, we have to extract them. Okay. So what are the different query parameters we want? So offset. Okay. So then there is limit. Okay. And then there is search underscore queue. Okay. Then there is order, and then there is order by. Okay. So these are the various query parameters that we are going to pass, right? So we are going to extract them here. Now, based on this, we have to update this SQL query. So let's do that. So we have select star from book. So here, there are some additional things that we have to specify, where the title, like, okay. So here we have to specify the search query, right? So we'll make use of this search query variable. Okay. So we are doing the pattern matching here. Okay. So this part is clear, right? So now, after this, so we want to order them based on a particular column that we have passed in the order by, right? So order by. So we have that here. Okay. And then we even specify the order, right, in which we want. So that will be present in this variable order. Okay. So we have the pattern matching about the title, and then we have order by and order, and then finally the limit and offset. Okay. So the limit is again present in the limit variable. Okay. And then offset is present in the offset variable. Okay. Clear? So we are done specifying the SQL query, right? So this SQL query is available for you in the queries.txt file. Okay, so there you can see it's already available for you. You can actually directly copy paste this too. Okay, it's the same as we have written. You can also do this thing. So here our objective is about how to apply the filters here, right? So the SQL query you can even copy paste in this manner. Okay, clear? So with this we have updated the query. So then the query will get run here, db.all, and then finally we'll get a books array, and that we are going to send as a response. So now let's see this. Okay, so let's go to the goodreads.http, right? So here we already have written this URL, right? So /book/ that is the path, and it's a get method. So this is appropriate. So now coming to the query parameters. So after question mark, so it's important that in the URL you specify the question mark. That's where the query parameters will start. So it's important that you specify that. Then we have offset equal to 2, limit is 3, the search query is Potter, order by is price, and order. You can appropriately change the values here. Let's say the order by, you can mention it as book ID, or here it's ascending, or you can change the limit offset values and try it out. Okay, let's try it out. So before that, we first have to run the server, right? So for that, node.mod index.js. Okay. So with this, the server is running now. Okay, there you can see it's running. So now let's send the request. Okay, let's click on send request. Okay, and there you can see we got the result. So we got all the books with the word Potter in it, right? So there you can see. Okay, we got all the books in this manner. Okay. There, as we have mentioned, the limit as 3, and there you can see we have just 3 books and all that. Okay, so we have got it appropriately. Cool. Okay. So we understood about this thing, right? Okay. So we have updated the SQL query in this manner, then we have sent the HTTP request, and we got a response in this manner. Okay, so now here there's one question. So what happens if we don't pass query parameters? So let's say few query parameters. Let's say we don't want to have any search query. Okay, so let's say we don't want anything like it should contain Potter or something like that. We just want to apply limit, offset, and ordering. Okay, so then how do we do? Okay, so let's say we didn't pass. Then what will happen? Okay, and how do we handle it? So that's the question. Okay, so if the search query is not passed, then you will get a result in this manner, an empty result. Okay, so what is the reason for this? So the reason is that we haven't passed the search query parameter, right? So when the object destructuring is happening, so then and in the search query variable, the value would be undefined. Okay, so basically the SQL query will become in this manner. So percentile, undefined percentile, right? So that's the reason we got an empty result. Okay, so if the search query parameter is not passed, and if you are trying to access it from the request.query object, so then the value present in that variable will be undefined. Okay, so that's the reason we got the result in that manner. Okay, so now how do we correct this? Okay, so for that we can provide default values. Okay, so we can write search query underscore q equal to double quotes, an empty string. Okay, so here the empty string is actually the default value. So if that particular query parameter is not passed, then instead of having undefined, the default value will be assigned to the search underscore q variable. Okay, so with this we can handle these. Okay, we can provide default values when we are destructuring. Okay, clear? So with this, what will happen? So let's say we haven't passed search underscore q query parameter. Okay. So then actually it has to be undefined. But since we have provided a default value as an empty string, so in the search underscore q, now the default value will be present. So the SQL query will be in this manner. So where title like, and then there's percentile and percentile. So that means that it will match all the titles. Okay. Clear? So then we will get the result appropriately in this manner. Okay. Clear? So shall we give this a try? Okay. So now let's say we have removed this search underscore q query parameter. We haven't passed it at all. Let's say we don't have any requirement on that manner. Okay, so now let's do send request. So as we can see, we got an empty result. So the reason for this is that, so when you're doing object destructuring, so if a particular query parameter is not passed, so then in that variable, the value will be undefined. So now in the search queue, the value is undefined. So what will happen here? It will be percentile, undefined, percentile, right? So that's the reason we have an empty result. You can always print this and see. So let me print it. So console.log of search underscore queue. Okay, let's see the result. So now let's send the request. So here we haven't specified the search underscore queue. So if you do a send request, so there you can see the search underscore queue value is undefined. Okay, so that's the reason we have result in that manner. Okay, so how do we handle it? So we can actually provide some default values while object destructuring in this manner. So just like in the functions, we have seen that if you don't pass a particular argument, right? So we can assign some default value, so that default value will be taken, right? Similarly, here also, if you provide some default value and if you don't pass that query parameter, then the default value will be present in that variable. Okay. So now in the search underscore queue, so in case if you don't provide the argument, then in the search underscore queue, then what will happen? So we will have the empty string. So when it's empty string, so it will be percentile, percentile, so it will match all the titles. Okay. So then we can appropriately handle it. Okay. So now let's do send request, and there you can see we have the result in this manner. Okay. Clear? So we understood this, right? Okay. So we have seen this. Okay. So similarly, what we can do is we can provide default values for various query parameters in this manner. Okay. So in case if we don't specify any of these query parameters, so then the default values will be considered. Okay. So like for offset it's 2, for limit it's 5, for order it's ascending, and order by is book ID, and the search query is an empty string. Okay. So if you don't provide any of these query parameters, then the default values will be taken. Okay. So for this, the corresponding SQL query will be in this manner. Okay. Clear? So let's give this a try. Okay, so now let's provide default values for each of these. Okay, so let's say the offset is 0. Okay, let's write offset as 0, say limit as 10. Appropriately, based on the requirement, you can specify. Let's say the order is ascending, and then let's say the order by is, say, book underscore ID. Okay, so let's just save this. Okay, appropriately, the default values have been assigned. So now let's send the some request. So there you can see here, we haven't specified any query parameters. So then what will happen? The default values will be taken into consideration, and we have this result. Okay. So you can try it out. So what you could do is you can give some query parameters and try it out, right? Let's say you only specify offset and limit, and let's say you only specify order, like this. Try with various things and see the results. Okay, go play around with this. Okay, so we have seen about this and we got this response, right? Okay, so here as we can see right now we have 5 query parameters. As we keep on adding filters, the number of query parameters may increase, right? So when we have more number of query parameters, so then we can make use of the post method instead of get and pass the query parameters in the request body. So we'll understand about this in detail as we proceed further in the sessions. Okay, so right now you just need to understand that when we have a lot more query parameters, so then instead of the get method, we can make use of the post method and pass the query parameters in the request body. Okay. So now we understood about this API, getbooks API, and add some filters to it, right? So now let's proceed further to the REST API. Okay, so let's understand firstly about the REST. Okay, so REST, the full form of it is representational state transfer. So REST represents representational state transfer. Okay, so REST is nothing but a set of principles to define how the HTTP request, how the URL should be. Okay, so these are just some set of principles which will define the standards about how exactly the request and response should be, how the URLs should be. So for that, the standards are defined using these set of principles. In our case, right, for each and every book, so we have a unique ID using which we are able to identify that resource, we were able to access it, right? So let's say we want to update a book. Okay, so we have written /book/1 and appropriately we were updating it, right? So that one is nothing but the unique ID assigned to a book, right? So using which we were able to identify that book and access it, right? So this is one principle in the REST. So you might be wondering, you can even write it as /book/book underscore ID equal to 1. So that is also, you can write it and it will work, right? But so according to the REST principle, so when we are using a particular URL to identify a resource, then we have to make use of the path parameter and write it in this manner. Okay, this is one way, okay, one principle. Okay, clear? So where each resource should have a unique ID using which we can identify it and we should be able to access it. Okay, so another principle is using the standard methods, right? So generally to retrieve the data, we were using the get, right? So get books or the get book API, getting a specific book, right? Details. So that is it. And when we want to get details of a particular book, we have used the put method, right? So then when we want to delete, so we have made use of the delete method. So in this way, so we were using the standard methods which have some guaranteed behavior in the HTTP, right? So this is another principle that we have to make use of the standard methods. So if you want to retrieve the data, you have to make use of get. So if you want to create some data, then post, then update, then put. Then if you want to delete, then you have to make use of the delete. So this is another principle. Okay. So then another one is, so generally when we are sending the HTTP request, we have mentioned the content type as application/JSON. That is, we are specifying that the request body will be of JSON format and send the response also in the JSON format. Okay, so we are specifying that using the content type, right? So this is another principle, right? So accepting and responding with the JSON, that is with the same type of same format. Okay, so there's another principle. Like this, there are various set of principles. So when we write the APIs using these REST principles, so then we say that such APIs are REST APIs. So the APIs that we were writing so far are the REST APIs because we were following all these REST principles. So the APIs that we are writing were the REST APIs. So when we follow these REST principles, right, so there are various advantages like scalability, reliability, all these will be present, right? So this will improve the application in various aspects like the scalability and the reliability, and there are various other things, right? So that's the reason it's always suggested to use the REST principles. So we understood about few principles, right? There are many more. So as we proceed further, we'll understand about them. Okay, clear? So we understood these things, right? Okay. So let me summarize today's session. So in today's session, we understood about how to apply filters to the GetBooks API. So there we make use of the query parameters and we have seen how to access them and appropriately apply them. Okay. So then we understood about the REST APIs, right? So REST is nothing but a set of principles. So the APIs that follow those set of principles are called as REST APIs. So the APIs that we were writing so far are the REST APIs. Okay. So we understood about few REST principles and we have seen about them.